On my wedding day, instead of hearing vows, I overheard my groom whispering to my cousin that he wished he had chosen her instead, and in that moment the happiest day of my turned into the most scene I will never forget. I was adjusting my veil in the bridal suit when I heard my cousin Maya laughing in the hallway. Something made me pause, my hand frozen on the delicate lace, because I recognized the other voice talking to her. It was David, my David. The man I was supposed to marry in 20 minutes. I keep thinking about what said last night. His voice carried through the thin door, and my heart stopped. About how different things could have been if I'd met first. Maya's response was soft, almost a whisper. Not today. David, can I do think like that? God, Maya, when me back at the rehearsal dinner, I knew I was marrying the wrong cousin. The world tilted. My legs gave out and I sank onto the vanity chair, my 3,000 dress pooling around me like spilled milk. The rehearsal dinner. While I was in the bathroom fixing my makeup, apparently my maid of honor and my groom were having their own private ceremony. I should have burst through that door. I should have screamed. Instead, I sat there like a coward, listening to my entire implode through 2 inches of wood. We can't do this, Maya was saying, but her voice had that breathless quality I knew too well. The same tone she used with every guy she'd stolen from me since we were teenagers. She's my cousin, she loves Pon, but do I love her? David's question hung in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. Or did I just think I did because she was safe? Because she worshipped me? Challenge me, Maya, make me feel alive. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom. 5 minutes, sweetheart. Dad's ready to walk down the aisle. I stared at my reflection in the vanity mirror. My makeup artist had done an incredible job. I looked like a princess, like every bride's dream of herself. But underneath all that perfection, I felt hollow. Because somewhere between picking out centerpieces and addressing invitations, I'd forgotten that I'd been cheating on David for 8 months. It started innocently enough. A coworker named James who made me laugh during our lunch breaks. Someone who saw me as more than David's future wife, more than the girl who had her mapped out since age 12. James made me feel dangerous, unpredictable. Winning me in the supply closet 3 months into our affair, I told it was just physical. That it didn't count because I was still gonna marry David. But hearing David confess his feelings for Maya through that door, I realized the truth. We were both frauds, both going through the motions of a love story we'd outgrown. The difference was he was confessing, and I was about to walk down an aisle in a white dress pretending to be pure. I have to go, David was saying. She's probably wondering where I am. David, wait. Maya's voice was urgent. After the reception, meet me in the hotel bar. We need to talk about this properly. But my hands were shaking as I applied another coat of lipstick. In the mirror, I watched Smile, testing the expression I'd wear for the next 6 hours. It looked convincing. A knock on the door made me, sweetie, it's time. Mom's voice was thick with emotion. Coming, I called out, surprised by how normal I sounded. I stood, smoothed my dress, and walked toward the door. Toward the lie I was about to tell in front of 200 people. Toward a marriage I knew was doomed before it began. The church looked like something out of a fairy tale. White roses everywhere, soft lighting, faces turned toward me with expectation and joy. My dad squeezed my arm as we started down the aisle. Look beautiful, princess, he whispered. I wanted to throw. David was waiting at the altar, looking handsome in his tuxedo. When our eyes met, he smiled but it didn't reach his eyes. Behind him, Maya stood with my other bridesmaids, her face pale but beautiful. She wouldn't look at me. The ceremony was a blur. I heard saying the right words, felt David slip the ring onto my finger. When the pastor said, "May kiss the bride," David's lips on mine felt like a goodbye. During the reception I watched David and Maya dance together during the wedding party dance. Her hand lingered on his shoulder a moment too long. His fingers traced the small of her back in a way that was definitely not cousinly. I excused to the bathroom and called James. Hey beautiful, he answered on the first ring. How's married? I need to see. I whispered, my voice breaking. What's wrong? Can meet me tonight. I know it's crazy but I can't do this anymore. There was a long pause. Just got married, Sarah. I know how it sounds. But I think I made a mistake. A huge mistake. Where? The Marriott downtown. Room 412. I'll text the keycard information. Please. I hung before he could talk sense into me. Before I could remember that I was wearing a wedding dress and that my new husband was 20 feet away, probably planning his own rendezvous with my cousin. The rest of the reception passed in a haze. I smiled for photos, the cake, tossed my bouquet. When Maya caught it, the irony wasn't lost on me. At midnight, I told David I had a headache and went to our honeymoon suite. He barely protested. Probably relieved to have his own freedom. I changed out of my wedding dress and into the lingerie I'd bought for my wedding night. Then I walked down 2 floors to room 412, where James was waiting. Really here? He said, pulling me into his arms. I thought might change mind. I heard him, I whispered against his chest. I heard my husband telling my cousin he wishes he'd married her instead. James pulled back to look at me. Wedding day, 20 minutes before the ceremony. Jesus, Sarah, I'm sorry, don't be sorry. Just make me forget. We made love with a desperation that scared me. Afterward, lying in his arms, I felt like I was floating outside my own body, watching someone else make the worst decision of her. What happens now? James asked. I didn't have an answer. I was Mrs. David Chen as of 6 hours ago. I had a marriage license and a reception full of witnesses and a husband who was probably in the hotel bar with my cousin right now, planning their own affair. I don't know, I whispered. But I should have known that can't build a marriage on mutual deception. I should have known that cheating on wedding night isn't revenge, it's just another layer of betrayal. I should have known that the person I was most wasn't David or Maya or even James. It was me, and it was about to get so much worse. The marriage lasted exactly 4 months and 3 days, not because David discovered my affair with James, but because I was enough to get pregnant. The morning for the third day in a row, I knew, heard I'd been off the pill for 2 weeks leading to the wedding because it was making me nauseous, and David and I had barely touched each other since the honeymoon. But James and we'd been meeting twice a week at various hotels around the city, and we weren't exactly careful. I stared at the positive pregnancy test in our guest bathroom, the one David never used, and felt my entire world collapse. There was a 50-50 chance this baby was my husband's, and a 50-50 chance it belonged to my affair partner. Those weren't odds I could live with. David was in the kitchen making coffee when I came downstairs, still in my robe, the test hidden in my pocket. "Look pale," he said, not looking from his phone. Our marriage had settled into this polite roommate situation faster than I'd expected. We barely talked anymore, just exchanged pleasantries about work and bills and whose turn it was to take out the trash. "David, we need to talk." Something in my tone made him look. "What's wrong?" "I'm pregnant." The coffee mug slipped from his hands and shattered on the kitchen floor. Coffee splashed across the white cabinets we'd picked out together 6 months ago, when we still thought we were building. "Pregnant?" His voice was barely a whisper. I nodded, watching his face cycle through confusion, shock, and something that looked almost like panic. "But we've barely." He stopped himself, probably remembering the 3 times we'd had awkward, obligatory since the wedding. "I know. How far along?" This was the question I'd been dreading. "I'm not sure. Maybe 6 weeks. 6 weeks would put conception right around our wedding night." When I was with James in room 412 while my brand new husband was God knows where, David ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I used to find endearing. Now it just looked desperate. "Okay," he said finally. "Okay, we can do this. We're married, we have good jobs. We always talked about having kids eventually." I wanted to tell him the truth right then. Wanted to explain that there was a very real possibility this baby wasn't his. But looking at his face, seeing the first genuine emotion I'd seen from him in months, I couldn't do it. "Yeah," I agreed weakly. "We can do this." But I couldn't do it. For the next 2 weeks I walked around like a zombie, calling in sick to work, avoiding James's texts, barely speaking to David. The weight of what I'd done was crushing me, and every day the secret got heavier. Maya called me 3 times during those 2 weeks. I let it go to voicemail every time. Her messages got progressively more desperate. "Sarah, we need to talk. I know you're avoiding me, but please call me back. Sarah, I'm worried about, Mom said been sick." Okay, Sarah, David called me. He told me about the baby. "We really need to talk now." I finally called her back on a Tuesday night when David was working late. "Thank God," she said as soon as she answered. "I've been going crazy." "What do you want, Maya?" "I want to explain about the wedding, about what heard." "Don't need to explain anything. I know exactly what I heard." There was a long silence. "He told me you're pregnant." "Wes." "Sarah, the timing." "What about the timing?" "Hurt us that day." "No, David and we were confused, we made a mistake. But nothing happened between us after that." "Nothing. I swear on our grandmother's grave." I almost laughed. "Good for." "But what about?" The question hung between us like a loaded. "What about me?" "We're faithful, Sarah. Because if this baby isn't David's," I hung on her. But Maya had always been smarter than me. 2 days later, she showed at my office. "We're gonna lunch," she announced, walking into my cubicle like she owned the place. "I'm busy." "No, we're not. Come on." She dragged me to a coffee shop 3 blocks away, the kind with private booths where people went to have difficult conversations. "Tell me about James," she said as soon as we sat down. My turn to ice. "Ooh, James Morrison, the guy from marketing department, the one been having an affair with since last spring." I stared at her, speechless. "I hired a private investigator," she said calmly, stirring her lat. "After David told me we're pregnant, I had to know. Hotel receipts, Sarah, credit card statements, phone records, 2 weren't exactly subtle, had me investigated." My voice came out as a croak. "I had to protect David. He's a good man and he doesn't deserve this." "Protect David? We're going to meet him in the hotel bar on our wedding night." But I didn't. I went to my room alone and I've barely spoken to him since. Because despite what think of me, I'm not a homewrecker. She pulled a manila envelope from her purse and slid it across the table. "Hotel security footage, credit card receipts, text messages. Want to guess what night this is from?" I didn't need to look. I knew it was from our wedding night. "Hud." Her voice broke. How could cheat on husband on wedding night? The same way could try to steal my husband 20 minutes before our ceremony. I didn't sleep with him, Sarah. I didn't destroy my marriage and potentially trick him into raising another man's child. The words hit me like because she was right. Whatever David and Maya had almost done, whatever emotional affair they'd been having, I'd gone nuclear. I'd blown everything. "What do you want?" I whispered. "I want to tell David the truth, before this goes any further. Before he falls in love with a baby that might not be his, and if I don't, then I will." I went home that night and found David in the nursery. We'd just started setting it the week before, and he'd been surprisingly enthusiastic about it. He was assembling a crib surrounded by instruction manuals and tiny screws. "Hey," he said when he saw me. "How was work?" "David, we need to talk." He must have heard something in my voice because he immediately put down the screwdriver. "What's wrong? Is it the baby? Are okay?" "I'm fine, the baby's fine. But there's something I need to tell." I told him everything. About James, heard about the affair, about our wedding night, about the fact that there was a very real possibility the baby wasn't his. He listened in complete silence, his face getting paler with every word. When I finished, he sat there for a long time, just staring at the half-assembled crib. "Our wedding night," he said finally. "Yes, while I was having the worst night of my feeling guilty about Maya were screwing other man. David, get out." What? Get out of this room. Get out of this house. I can't look it right now. I packed a bag and went to a hotel. The same hotel chain where I'd been meeting James for months. The irony wasn't lost on me. 3 days later, David's lawyer called me. He wanted a divorce, a paternity test, and for me to move out permanently. James, meanwhile, had gone completely silent. When I finally tracked him down at work, he looked like he'd seen a ghost. Sarah, we can't do this anymore. Do what? We're not doing anything. I told David everything. That's the problem. My wife knows. The words hit me like a freight train. Wife, apparently Maya called her. Told her everything. About us, about the baby. About the possibility that I might be the father. I sank into the chair across from his desk. James never told me we're married. Never asked. And that was the moment I realized how completely I destroyed everything. I hadn't just cheated on my husband. I'd helped another man cheat on his wife. I'd potentially created a child who would grow as a living reminder of the worst decision 2 people ever made. What happens now? I asked, echoing the same question I'd asked him on our wedding night. Now figure out how to explain to kids someday why mommy destroyed 2 families before they were even born. He was right. But I still had no idea how much worse it was going to get. The paternity test came back on a Thursday. David insisted on being there when I got the results, along with his lawyer and mine. We met at the lab at 2 p.m., sitting in plastic chairs like we were waiting for a verdict in a criminal trial. Which, I guess, we were. The probability of paternity for David Chen is 0%, the technician read from the report. The probability of paternity for James Morrison is 99.7%. The silence in that room was deafening. I watched David's face crumble. Watched 4 months of hope and preparation and tentative excitement in his eyes. I need some air, he said and walked out. I followed him to the parking lot, where he was leaning against his car, sobbing. David, I'm so sorry. Don't. He held his hand without looking at me. Don't dare apologize to me, you've done enough. I know me, but can we please try to figure out how to co-parent this situation? He looked at me then, and the contempt in his eyes was unlike anything I'd ever seen. Co-parent, Sarah, this isn't my child. I'm not co-parenting anything with. I'm divorcing and I never want to see again. But said wanted kids. We're excited about the baby. I was excited about our baby. The baby I thought was mine. The baby I thought was created out of love, not out of screwing married coworker on our wedding night. The divorce was finalized when I was 7 months pregnant. David got the house, I got nothing. My lawyer said I was lucky he didn't sue me for. James's wife left him when I was 8 months pregnant. She took their 2 kids and moved across the country. James blamed me for destroying his family, even though he was the one who'd been lying to both of us. I never told I was single, he said when I confronted him about it. Assumed. Never asked if I was married, if I had kids, if I had anything to lose. Hurt were so wrapped in own drama that never thought about the collateral damage. He was right. I'd been so focused on my own unhappiness, my own justifications, that I'd never considered the innocent people who would get caught in the blast radius. I gave birth to Emma on a Tuesday in March. She was beautiful and perfect and completely innocent of the chaos that had brought her into the world. James came to the hospital for an hour, held her awkwardly, and signed the birth certificate. Then he left. I can't be her father, he told me in the hallway. Not really. Every time I look at her, I'll remember what we did. What I lost because of it. She's daughter. She's the reason my kids won't speak to me anymore. She's the reason I lost everything that mattered. I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in the worst part of town. It was all I could afford on my salary, especially with childcare costs. Maya had gotten the whole family to turn against me. So I had no help from that side. My parents were disappointed, but tried to be supportive, which somehow felt worse than outright rejection. Emma was 6 months old when I ran into David at the grocery store. I was in the baby food aisle, looking exhausted and frazzled, while Emma screamed in her car seat. David looked good. Tan, relaxed, like he'd been working out. He had a woman with him, someone I didn't recognize, someone who looked at him the way I used to. Sarah. He stopped when he saw me, and I could see him taking in my appearance. The dark circles under my eyes, the spit stain on my shirt, the general look of someone barely holding it together. David. Hi. The woman stepped closer to him, and he put his arm around her waist. This is Jennifer, he said. Jennifer, this is Sarah, my ex-wife. Jennifer smiled politely, but I could see the curiosity in her eyes. She'd heard the story. This is Emma, I said, gesturing to the baby who was still crying. My daughter. David looked at Emma for a long moment, and I saw something flicker across his face. Pain maybe, or regret. Not for what he'd lost, but for what Emma had lost. The chance to have a father who wanted her. She's beautiful, he said quietly. How are doing? It was the first kind thing he'd said to me since that day at the lab. I'm okay. We're okay. It was a lie and we both knew it. I heard James moved to Seattle. I nodded. James had taken a job across the country 6 months after Emma was born. He sent child support payments through a lawyer, but he'd never asked to see her again. I'm sorry, David said, and I could tell he meant it. For what? That she'll grow without a father. Whatever happened between us, whatever did, she doesn't deserve that. I started crying right there in the grocery store, sobs that made other shoppers stare. Jennifer looked uncomfortable, but David didn't move away. She asks about her daddy sometimes. I whispered. She's too young to really understand, but she notices that other kids have dads and she doesn't. What do you tell her? That mommy made some bad choices. David was quiet for a long moment. Know what the worst part is, he said finally. What? I could have forgiven the affair. If told me before the wedding, if been honest, we could have worked through it. People do it all the time. But lied to me at the altar. Promised to forsake all others while we're planning to meet lover that same night. Made me complicit in my own humiliation. I know. And now there's this beautiful little girl who's going to grow knowing that her father didn't want her and her mother destroyed 2 families to bring her into the world. How do you think that's going to affect her? I didn't have an answer, because I'd been so focused on my own pain, my own guilt, that I hadn't really thought about Emma's future. About what it would be like for her to grow as the product of such betrayal. David and Jennifer left, and I stood in that grocery store aisle, holding my screaming daughter, surrounded by jarred baby food in the wreckage of my. That was 2 years ago. Emma is almost 3 now, and she started asking more questions about her father. Where is he? Why doesn't he live with us? Why don't I have a daddy like the other kids at daycare? I've started seeing a therapist, trying to figure out how to answer those questions honestly without traumatizing her. But every conversation comes back to the same truth. Emma will grow knowing that her existence is the result of the worst thing her mother ever did. Maya married David 8 months ago. I found out through social media because I'm that pathetic. They look happy in their wedding photos. Really, genuinely happy. The way David and I never did, even before everything fell apart. I sent her a message after I saw the announcement. I hope we're happy. I hope give him what I couldn't. She wrote back. I hope someday Emma forgives for what did to her before she was even born. She was right to say it. Emma is the innocent victim in all of this. She's a beautiful, smart, funny little girl who deserves so much better than the story of how she came to be. James sends Christmas and birthday cards now, but he's never asked to meet her. I have his new address in Seattle, and sometimes I think about taking Emma there, showing on his doorstep and forcing him to be a father. But then I remember that he has other children now, kids who don't know they have a half-sister, kids whose mother already left him once because of Emma's existence. I work 2 jobs to pay for our tiny apartment. Emma goes to the cheapest daycare in our neighborhood, and I lie awake at night worrying about whether I'm giving her enough, whether I'm enough for her. The truth is, I'm not enough. I'm a single mother working 60 hours a week to pay for the mistakes I made in one night. Heard. I'm raising a child whose father wants nothing to do with her, because she reminds him of the worst thing he ever did. I'm living with the knowledge that I destroyed 2 marriages, 4 innocent children, heard, and brought my own daughter into the world as a living consequence of betrayal. People sometimes ask me if I regret it, if I could go back and change things, would I? The honest answer is that I don't know. Because changing things would mean Emma wouldn't exist, heard, and despite everything, despite the pain and the guilt and the isolation, she's the best thing in my. But then I look at her sometimes, see her playing alone because I can't afford the activities other kids do, see her asking why she doesn't have a daddy, and I think about the price she's paying for my selfishness. Last week she came home from daycare and asked me why the other kids said she doesn't have a real family. We're a real family, I told her, Jess and me. But why don't I have a daddy? And I realized that someday, probably sooner than I'd like, I'm gonna have to tell her the truth. That mommy cheated on her wedding night. That daddy was married to someone else and didn't want her. That she exists because 2 people made the worst possible choices at the worst possible time. I'm gonna have to tell my beautiful, innocent daughter that her entire existence is built on a foundation of betrayal and lies. That's the real consequence of what I did, not the divorce, not the financial struggles, not the loneliness or the guilt, or the way people look at me when they find out the story. The real consequence is that my daughter will grow knowing that love and commitment mean nothing when desire calls, and that sometimes the people who should protect are the ones who most. Every time someone tells their story of infidelity, every time someone says, was just physical, or didn't mean anything, I want to show them Emma's face when she asks about her daddy who chose not to choose her. Because that's what cheating really costs, not just marriage, not just integrity, but the innocence of everyone who comes after, everyone who has to live in the wreckage created when decided momentary happiness was worth more than everyone else's entire world.